And now, Move the Sticks with Daniel Jeremiah.
What's up, everybody? DJ back here, joined by my good friend Bucky Brooks. Bucky, what's happening, man?
What's going on? How you doing today?
You ready for some Move the Sticks?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready to move the chains a little bit. Move the sticks, get first downs. Can I throw my first down side?
I'm going to start keeping a record of the announcers that say Move the Sticks more than others, because there are some people that say Move the Chains. I'm off them completely. I like the guys that use the Move the Sticks. Free marketing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because it matches your Twitter handle, so you certainly can't be mad.
Yeah, no, you can market it all up. For those that are just listening to this or watching this for the first time, let me explain a little bit about what we do here on Move the Sticks. My background is in scouting. Bucky's background is in scouting. So we try and look at what's going on in the league from a personnel standpoint. We're going to tell you not just what happened, we're going to try and tell you why it happened and what the thought process was behind some decisions, as well as just evaluating personnel. And so I think it gives us a chance to have a unique voice in the podcast space. We've got Shaq that can give you entertainment. We've got the Around the NFL guys that are going to try and talk about toasters. So if you're into like, kitchen appliances, Around the NFL is your show. But we're going to take you behind the curtain and do some personnel talk.
Yeah, I mean, we get an opportunity to really dig down deep and look at personnel and how certain moves add up as teams are putting the pieces of the puzzle together.
And we've got our man behind the glass once again, TD, running the show here. TD, we got a jam-packed show. Why don't you tell everybody what's coming up?
Yep, what's coming up on today's show, we're going to look into the preseason so far, preseason notes so far, your preseason gems, like the underrated guys who are, making a name for themselves, and we're going to do some edge rusher previews. We did quarterbacks a couple weeks ago. We did wide receivers last week. We're going to dig into this year's edge rushers.
By the way, TD, you're channeling Run DMC with the look.
I know, old school.
Back up.
Old school.
For those who can't
stripes.
He's got the three
track jacket. Look at that.
He's got the Adidas three-stripe jacket going on back there.
The story is I actually got this for Halloween, so I got the whole outfit with a gold chain.
Oh, the rope, all that, huh?
LL Cool J.
That's LL Cool J. LL Cool J is strong.
Ladies love TD. I get it.
TD steps his game up when he's on the video behind the glass. All right, so we got a busy show. You want to jump in on this, Bucky?
Yeah, what you want to do?
All right, let's go. Preseason. Let's jump into preseason. We'll get to the pass rushers. We'll get to all that stuff down the line. But let's start with what's going on in the preseason right now. I'll lead us off. Just in terms of things that have stood out to me. Ryan Tannehill. I mean, I know. Look, Michael Bennett made all that noise because of what he said. Like, you can be an average quarterback, and he mentioned Ryan Tannehill's name. I totally disagree with that. First of all, let me get to Bennett's comments first. Okay, if you're a president and you're a mayor, technically you're both politicians. One has a little more responsibility than the other. That's why the quarterbacks get paid so much money, but I'll jump off that. Ryan Tannehill's got better each and every year. I had a chance to go see him in the preseason against the Chicago Bears, watch what he did last week on tape. He looks sharp to me. He's dialed in. He's processing things very, very quickly, getting the ball out of his hands. And this is without Devontae Parker. They're going to get him in the mix outside at wide receiver. He's taking easy completions when they're there, and he's being selectively aggressive down the field, which is what I want to see from him. But the quick release, the ability to extend plays and run around a little bit with his legs, I think he's got Pro Bowl ability. And I know from where he was drafted and what was expected of him, maybe some people doubt that. I really, really like what I've seen from Ryan Tannehill.
I think this is a perfect marriage in terms of player fitness system. I think they've done a great job of putting a system around Ryan Tannehill that allows him to shine. Bill Lazor coming over, putting in some of the things that they did with the Philadelphia Eagles, up-tempo spread offense. He's really thriving in that. And I agree with you. I think he's on the cusp of being a Pro Bowl player. And I think he has potential to get this offense on track. And if that offense comes up to what the defense has when Ndamukong Suh coming over, they certainly can be a team that we're going to talk about in the AFC East.
I look at quarterbacks that are athletic. A lot of times it's tough to find a guy that's athletic like Tannehill, but also has that poise and to be able to slow things down. Sometimes you're so quick and you're so agile, your brain starts working a little bit fast. He's able to kind of slow things down, so it's a nice mix there in Miami.
Yeah, I think it's a nice mix, and I think he's in his comfort zone. I think that offense, they continue to build upon it each year, giving him more concepts to read, more things to do. And because of that, you've seen a guy that has continued to be a guy that is on the rise because he's improving each year. And I think as he shows more confidence, he's beginning to take more chances.
All right, what stood out to you?
I think the Minnesota Vikings are legit contenders. When I look at teams that are built to make deep postseason runs, I look for them to have a couple of key components. A franchise quarterback, a guy that can make plays on his own, a supporting cast that allows him to make those plays, and a defense that is rock solid that can keep the opponents down. When I look at the Vikings, and I looked at them throughout the preseason, they have all of those core traits that you need. Teddy Bridgewater is talking about completing over 70% of his passes this year. Those are lofty goals because only 5 guys have done that in NFL history. But when you look at the way this offense is shaped, he has playmakers on the outside. Charles Johnson is emerging as a legitimate number 1. Mike Wallace is a terrific big play playmaker. There, my man Kyle Rudolph is a former Pro Bowl player. And we haven't even talked about his ability to get back. Adrian Peterson, the best running back in the game. You give him those things on the outside. Offensively, they can handle any style, any conditions. They're a team that can take that offense on the road. But defensively, Anthony Barr coming on, joining up with Everson Griffin, what they're doing in the back end with Harrison Smith. I think this team is ready to make a serious run to the NFC.
One of the things the Vikings have done under North Turner, when they got down the red zone, we saw just a dime that Teddy dropped. I love this concept. I love talking scheme stuff with you. But running those verticals from inside in the slot. You hitch up on the outside, so that corner's sucked up, and now you've got all that room to throw that vertical route. A lot of times we think of, a fade down in the red zone, a go route. You think about guys on the outside. They're running these verticals from inside. I love it.
I love what they're doing. That dime that you talked about, him tossing it over the shoulder to Charles Johnson, that is what you pay a big-time playmaker to do. And Teddy Bridgewater has shown that increasingly in the preseason. He's ready to take his game to the next level. Anyone who watched him the last 4 or 5 games of the year saw it coming on. The light has come on for Teddy Bridgewater. He's playing up to expectation, particularly the way that you and I saw him at Louisville. We thought he would be this kind of player.
Yeah, look, the pro day scared a lot of people off, but we stuck to our guns. It looks like a good move for us so far. We'll see how Teddy continues to progress, but I like what I've seen. A little bit earlier, you mentioned, we're talking about Tannehill, about that defense in Miami. I love what they have defensively. I don't think they have the best defense in their division, though.
No.
Because the next thing that stands out to me is the Buffalo Bills and what they're doing. And Rex Ryan just brings a whole attitude and a different vibe to that defense. Now, they've put up good statistics. They've been very, very dominant. I think they take this thing even to another level. I mean, you just watch the way they played. They're swarming to the ball. Every single time you're watching them on tape, you're going to see 8, 9, 10 hats getting to the football. They look so fast in the back end. Darby, who struggled, Ronald Darby, their draft pick, struggled week 1. He comes back against the Browns, has 2 interceptions, so that's a positive. But up front, who's blocking these guys, Bucky?
Yeah, I don't know who can block them because when you look at that front four, I mean, if you include Mario Williams in the front four, the way they run their 3-4 defense, you talk about Marcel Darius being one of the best interior players, Kyle Williams being a dominant player on the interior as well, Mario Williams being able to come off the edge and really be a physical rusher, and Jerry Hughes. They found a way to get Jerry Hughes into the mix to give you double-digit sacks. And so when Rex Ryan comes over with Dennis Thurman, they are a team that not only likes to bring pressure, but they like to do simulated pressure where they have a lot of moving pieces at the front line. They really make it very difficult and challenging for the quarterback to decipher where to go with the ball. And in the back end, Stephon Gilmore, Aaron Williams, I think these guys are ready to be household names. I think this will be the year that we hear them get the attention that they deserve because they should make a lot of plays.
And we've seen this rule change, right, with these shots over the middle. So it's kind of taken some of that physical play out. The strike zone has really, really shrunk, right? You can't hit him in the head. You can't go low. You could tell Buffalo's been working on this because that game against the Cleveland Browns, they are flying around and smacking people. And these are clean hits, no flags. But to me, it's just that aggressiveness you're seeing from Buffalo. That's going to be a nasty group.
Nasty group. That defense is lights out. And being able to play in that division, they're really comfortable. Like Rex Ryan is very comfortable going against Tom Brady and the Patriots. They have the pieces in place now to do some of the things that they always wanted to do with the Jets. And the last couple of years, they didn't have that. I think now they kind of get back to it. Another defense that I think is playing lights out.
Who you got?
San Diego Chargers down in your neck of the woods. The Superchargers are actually a team that I'm excited about defensively. John Pagano finally has the pieces in place to play the style of play that he wants to play up front. We saw Melvin Ingram show up against the Arizona Cardinals in preseason. He was a blur coming off the edge, had 2 sacks in that preseason game. Now you're beginning to see him give them the contributions that they expect. I like interior. Donald Butler, Manti Te'o, I think they finally understand.
You got Denzel Perryman to throw in there, too.
You always can throw him in there. I like what they're doing on the inside. But I'm really excited about the corner that they got last year, Justin Verrett. He is now coming on and being able to be a big-time player. He can lock down and play man-to-man. He can cover him. He can play bump and run. He also can play from off. And so the versatility that it brings to the table, along with Brandon Flowers, I now like that combination of Flowers and Verrett because now they have the versatility to attack people in a variety of ways.
Yeah, when I was down there at training camp, Verrett really stood out. I mean, Jason Verrett, we talked about it last week. What he did against Odell Beckham in college showed you what he was capable of. I'm anxious to see when they get up against some of those big wide receivers because they are a little bit small on the outside. But fluidity and cover skills, Verrett's as good as it gets out there. The Chargers are fascinating to me because they're kind of one of those teams, And I hope I don't jinx them because I said it last week that the Bengals were a team nobody was talking about. And then they just go lay an absolute egg against Tampa. But no, San Diego's kind of a team laying in the weeds a little bit.
Yeah, I think they are. And I think it depends on what Melvin Gordon gives them on offense. If they can balance out that offense a little bit, not necessarily put all the pressure on Phillip Rivers to make it happen, I think that team can certainly contend.
All right, some diamonds in the rough. We talked about some things that really stood out to us from a team's perspective or players. Now let's go a little bit beneath the surface. You watch these preseason games. I know when we were scouting, you got to go out there and look at some of those back-end roster, late round picks and free agents, and there's always guys that pop. Who popped for you?
Chris Harper for the New England Patriots popped for me. Now, I know Chris Harper personally because I watched him in high school.
Was that Cal?
He was a Cal guy, but he played here locally in L.A. at Crespi High School. I coach over at Notre Dame. That's our arch rival. He caught a big-time play his final year to beat us. But watching him ascend to the pros, what I like about him, quickness, his route running ability, and what I really like that he's shown in the preseason, his ability to run after the catch, has also stepped up as a punt returner. And so when you think about the Patriots and what they've been able to do successfully, they've been able to put punt returners in those slots, in those positions where they can catch the ball on the move and make plays. Did it with Wes Welker. They've done it with Julian Edelman. I think Chris Harper could be the next guy to do that. Danny Amendola was another guy that was a punt returner as well.
How about the guy real quick throwing him the ball in the preseason, Garoppolo? I thought he looked
good. How about
good.
that? He was sharp, razor sharp. I think now if you're a New England Patriots fan, you should have more confidence that they can get it done no matter how long Tom Brady's out because you saw them dial in. I think they game planned a little more, and because of that, he was very, very successful getting the ball out of his hands.
Quick feet, quick release. He looks sharp. A guy that stood out to me, I'm going to go back. This is a Chargers-heavy episode we've got going here. Kyle Emanuel out of North Dakota State, mid-round pick for him. Is somebody that played with his hand in the ground as a defensive end. I went back and looked at my notes when he was coming out. I gave him a 5th, 6th round grade. Thought he'd be a really, really good third end or third pass rusher, depending on where he went. I loved his hustle. I loved his burst. He was able to convert speed to power against Iowa State. So you got a smaller school guy. They step up against Iowa State. He played great. He can redirect, and I thought he was a potential to even move inside and play inside linebacker if you needed him to. Now he goes to San Diego. They're standing him up as an outside linebacker. Their first game against the Chargers, he has a nasty inside counter move, which for those who don't know what that means, you take a couple steps upfield and then you cross the face of the tackle inside. Tackle didn't get a hand on him. He gets a sack. I just love the energy, the effort, all that stuff he brings to the table. I think he's a special teamer, spot player this year. I think he's got starting potential from what I've seen in the preseason.
You know, it's funny. The first thing that stood out to me when I looked at the clips was his ability to make contributions on special team. We know those guys drafted in later rounds, those guys that are backup players on the roster, they have to be able to contribute on teams and being able to cover kicks like he exhibited on kickoff, being able to come down and make plays, be a factor on the punt cover team. That'll give him a chance to get a jersey each week. And if he gets a jersey, it gives him an opportunity to get in the game. And if he flashes, then he works his way into the rotation.
I actually saw an interview with him after the Cowboy game, and he said that the teammates gave him a bunch of crap because his celebration was no good. So I don't know how big they are in celebrations, North Dakota State. By the way, North Dakota State, Montana, this Saturday, the first college football game
of the year. How about that?
I didn't even know. I'm looking towards Harbaugh and Utah next week, Michigan, Utah.
Thursday. Don't forget about that North Carolina, South Carolina game on September 3rd.
Okay, what is that? Is that a Thursday?
Thursday night.
Okay, yeah, so that's Thursday too. That's what I said, but now we've got Montana and North Dakota State from Missoula, Montana. Those are two really good football programs. So
two
Saturday,
programs. Used to look forward to going up to Missoula because they always had guys that could come out there. Tremaine Johnson is the last guy that I remember coming out there that was a big-time player.
And that's my last college game trivia question, Bucky. We lost to Montana. I was at Appalachian State. We lost to Montana in the playoffs. The Grizz. It was cold, man. It was way cold. All right, let's move on now to the edge rushers. And we talked last week about wide receivers. And the way we're doing this is as scouts, you take all the information, you watch the tape, you get the background information, you write a summary on a player. And the summary is kind of everything, and you're trying to shrink it down into 1 or 2 paragraphs. But for this exercise, I thought, okay, forget that. Let's make it harder. Let's try and just do it in 3 terms. So when you want to describe a player, give an image to somebody without having seen them of what that player is in only 3 terms. What is it? Last week we did it with wide receivers, I believe, right?
Yeah.
We're going to do it with edge rushers today and with an added challenge. We have the suits. You know, the suits are listening. The suits are paying attention.
They're listening. We've been challenged.
So the suits came through with a challenge for us and said, all right, why don't you guys try and make it a little bit harder where each of you can only use, you can only use this term 1 time. So while you might say something that I say, individually, I can only use the word, instinctive 1 time for all these players. But let's rip through these edge rushers. And to
DJ,
me,
fun fact about that suit in particular, his name is actually Tom Brady.
Yeah,
I wasn't going to call him out, though.
How about that? You called him out. You called him on the carpet. You've been looking at Hard Knocks too much. You pulled a Bill O'Brien. You calling people out.
It's a production note. That's all.
I just more, TD, normally you chime in like, once or twice during the podcast. Now
I got this red jacket on.
He's got this jacket on.
Yeah, so then you get some TV time.
I've got over 7 TD appearances on this episode. And I think that's good. I think the public wants that. I'm going to take a picture. Can somebody back there, we have 19 people behind the glass.
We've got a directing here.
Somebody take a picture of TD with this jacket on so those that aren't seeing this right now, I'll tweet it out. So
they're seeing this. This is on YouTube.
Yeah, this, by the way, tell everybody.
Watch the show on YouTube. It's going to be up later today, which is Thursday. So you can watch the whole show. Or you can jump to segments at a particular point if you want to. But again, listen, watch, whatever, however you want to consume the show, it's available.
So is there a segment on there that just says TD's
Well, that's
tire?
the first segment.
That's the first segment?
Okay. Me walking around in the jacket.
All right. Well, can we go back now? Can we go back? All right. We're going to continue on here today. Talking about edge rushers, to me, the first one right off the top. J.J. Watt, sometimes people list him as interior guy. He's rushing over a tackle. So I'm going to go ahead and include him as an edge rusher. And the 3 terms for me, when I break down J.J. Watt, I start with number 1, quick feet. He is so quick. His first step, he's quick. He can change directions, redirect. You see the evidence of his quick feet. Then I will go quick hands. A lot of times you get guys have one or the other. He is a beautiful combination of the quick feet and the quick hands. If you watched him on Hard Knocks, you saw him constantly working on those hand moves against dummies. He's got really, really quick hands. And then the last thing I would say, which kind of makes him who he is relentless. I would just use the term, he's a relentless pass rusher. He doesn't stop. Sometimes, he can be blocked by the first guy. He's going to keep coming. Quarterback gets flushed. He picks up a sack. He just never stops, Buck.
I love watching J.J. Watt. I think the public has been treated to being able to really see what makes him tick by watching Hard Knocks. You see a guy that really works hard at his craft day in, day out, comes early, stays late. When I listed my 3 terms, I borrowed your word relentless because I think he's a nonstop motor guy, a guy that plays hard. From snap to whistle, he is always giving you maximum effort. He wears people down over the course of the game because he plays so hard. He's explosive. You talk about quick hands, quick feet. I saw a guy that is just explosive when he makes contact. You talk about his hand skills. His ability to really shock people at a point of attack is uncommon. And then he's agile. The agility that you see from a big man. Look, he was a tight end in high school. He played some tight end at Central Michigan before he transferred to Wisconsin. This is a guy that athleticism shows. Obviously, he's a two-way player because they've used him at tight end on offense. But those movement skills, those traits that he brings to the table makes him different than some of the other rushers in the league.
It's interesting you talk about him being a tight end. I was around a defensive line coach in Jim Washburn with Philadelphia, who's been around for a long time. I think he's retired now, but he would always talk about when he was recruiting in college, he would recruit high school tight ends to play defensive line. He wanted tight ends and he wanted basketball players. And it's interesting that J.J. Watt has a background in both.
Yeah, you can see it. You can see it play out, particularly when he puts his hand in the dirt. If he decides to rev it up and go, you can see him use quickness to his advantage. Uncommon to see a guy like that do that. But in thinking about uncommon, the next guy that we're going to talk about, to me, has uncommon traits. And that is Von Miller from the Denver Broncos. I mean, you're talking about a guy that has come in the league and really taken the league by storm. And part of that is because when I look at him, he reminds me of a teammate of mine, the late, great Derek Thomas, a Hall of Fame player, a guy who really did it. And the first trait that stands out to me when I look at Von Miller, cat-like quickness. Coming off the ball, his snap count anticipation and get off is unlike any that I've seen in the modern era. The way he gets off, the way he turns the corner, the way he gets to the quarterback, you don't see that. The second thing I wrote, and I didn't make this word up. I used a thesaurus. Bendy, because I was thinking about Gumby. I was thinking about the ability to be able to bend and burst. When you watch him dip and rip and going past offensive tackles, you just don't see guys that are this
I'm not happy right
off
now.
the ball.
I'm not happy right now.
Did I take your word?
I'm not. Just
Gumby.
go ahead. Go
Gumby.
ahead.
Gumby.
I didn't need a thesaurus. More than a thesaurus.
Coming off the edge, being able to bend and burst around the corner, you just don't see it. I like the celebration that he uses on occasion, but also disruptive, being able to knock the ball, separate the quarterback from the ball, the tomahawk chop. I watched Derek Thomas do that year after year, down after down, being able to knock the ball from the quarterback's hands. Von Miller has obviously watched a lot of Derek Thomas tape because his game is eerily similar to the Hall of Fame.
Bucky, can
So-
you break down what you mean by the tomahawk chop?
The tomahawk chop, so when you're running past the quarterback, if you think about reaching for it, the quarterback has it on the shelf, he's getting ready to throw it, you're taught as a defender to swipe at it, to knock it down. Von Miller has stolen that move directly from Derek Thomas. Derek Thomas was the master at knocking it away. Because of that, Von Miller's been able to force a ton of forced fumbles during his career.
TD, did you not watch the Atlanta Braves play baseball at all in the 90s? Or Florida? Have you ever watched Florida State play football? It's the same thing, dude. Come on now. Stay with me.
So what are your thoughts on Von Miller?
Well,
what do you got for him?
I'm so upset right now because my first word on Von Miller is bendy. I'm not making that up. That's my first description because that is what you see from him. His ability to just bend and wrap around the edge is different than everybody else. I can remember watching him on college tape, and when you're watching pass rushers, a lot of times there's a couple of tricks when you're evaluating players. And for those that want to get into scouting or enjoy watching tape, you can do it. Now we have the game rewind on NFL.com, so you can go there, watch the all 22. A good thing to do when you're watching pass rushers, for the first 10 plays, I like to freeze it right at the snap. So I want to see who the first one is off the ball. And you'll see there's some guys that it's uncanny every single time. We talked about the Buffalo Bills earlier. With all the athletes they had, and this is a couple years ago, I did this. Kyle Williams was the first one off the ball every single snap. So that ability is something you see with Von Miller. But to me, the other thing I like to do is I like to see when guys are bending around the edge, I like to go in slow motion and just see how they can bend and contort and flatten to the quarterback. And that's what he does better than anybody else. The second word I would use is his length. He's long. People wonder sometimes in scouting why we measure guys' arms. Whoever gets to the chest of the opponent is going to win. Whether you're offensive tackle or you're a pass rusher, having that length to be able to pop and separate. So you get your hands to the chest plate before they get to you, create that separation, and you explode by. That's another thing that makes him special. And finally, instinctive. Being able to feel when you're rushing, being able to feel the quarterback climbing up in the pocket and to adjust your pass rush and be able to finish. He's just very, very instinctive, has a natural feel for the game.
Natural feel, those terms that you use. Sitting in the meeting rooms in Green Bay when I was a player, Fritz Sherman was the defensive coordinator. He had a D-line background. He always talked about you have to win with your hands first. And so when you talk about the first guy that gets his hands inside the chest, those are one of the first traits that I look for in a defensive lineman. Can they get inside? Can they control it? Because whoever gets inside has the ability to control. Von Miller has those traits, and that's part of the reason why he's been able to be so successful as a pass rusher very early in his career.
Slow motion. That's why the key. Slow motion, baby. We can do the song, but I won't do that to you. I want to move on to the next one, and I'm going to go to the Kansas City Chiefs, and that's Justin Houston, who last year, I think because of J.J. Watt, the year that he had, I don't know how you can go underrated when you have 22 sacks in a season, but Justin Houston didn't get as much pub as he should have got. He got paid big time in the offseason. But the words I would use to describe him, I saved explosive. Now remember, we can only use these words once. So explosive for Justin Houston. Finisher, I talked about the instincts of a Von Miller. With Justin Houston, his ability to finish. Look, pressures are nice, but you get paid for sacks. I know I've been in some defensive line rooms in the league where they have sacks up on the wall and the S is spelled with the money sign.
That's right.
That's how you're going to get paid.
You got to win on money down.
And you got to be able to finish. And that's an underrated trait. You can win the whole down, but if you can't get the quarterback on the ground, you're not going to be recognized. And I think he's one of the best finishers in the league. And finally, just strong hands. He's just got very, very powerful, strong hands. When he is engaged, to be able to shed blocks, and that shows up in the run, not just the pass game, but he's got very, very strong hands.
It's so funny that two scouts would pick so many of the same terms. But as I told the suits, sometimes it's hard because we all look at it sometimes from the same eye, even though we have different takes on it. So my three terms to describe Justin Houston: feisty, persistent, finisher. Feisty in terms, plays with an attitude, angry, brings motor, relentless in his pursuit, nonstop guy chasing the quarterback from the backside. Persistent, doesn't quit on the play. You see him accumulate sacks on second and third effort. He can be blocked initially, but he continues to fight to get home. And then he does make the play. There's something to be said for the guy that can bring the quarterback down. We talk about being able to finish. You think about it, the last two guys that we mentioned, Von Miller, Justin Houston, we rarely see them run past the quarterback and not make the play. There's a trait, there's a trick to being able to do that. Justin Houston has it mastered because we saw him. 22 sacks. Unbelievable for you.
That ability to go up the field, but then to be able to come back under at the top of your rush.
Control, understand, feel it.
It's so frustrating, and that's a challenge. It's going to be a challenge, I think, for Vic Beasley. Is he's going to have to work on developing that?
Yes.
He's got all that speed and get off, but tackle's just going to push him up the field. He's got to be able to work.
He has to be able to counter. He has
to
be able to put his foot in the ground and work up under. And it's not anything that a coach can necessarily teach. You kind of have it or you don't have it.
All right, so we've gone through J.J. Watt, we've gone through Von Miller and Justin Houston. We've got 3 more, so this is halftime. Does LL Cool J want to jump in with a question here? What do you got, TD?
Yeah, let's go. The very first guy we did, we spoke about J.J. Watt, and obviously last 2 seasons he's been absolutely insane on defense, even showing flashes on offense. We've heard a lot of whispers. Could he be the best ever? Could he end up being the best ever? What do you guys think? Is there anything he's already even the best ever at?
Before we answer that question, can you give me just one line of backseat of my Jeep?
I'm not ready.
How you gonna be an LL dude if you can't dial it up on demand?
Come on, TD.
Come on.
All right, but what's your take, J.J. Watt, where he stacks up right now?
I think he's on track to be one of the best ever. Like, obviously, there have been some great guys. I had teammates and Reggie White and Bruce Smith that were able to do freakish things. But when you look at what J.J. Watt has been able to accomplish playing the position that he's played, like he's a 5 technique, meaning you talk about he lines up over top of tackle. Sometimes he's in the gap between the guard and the tackle. It's uncommon for a guy to have a number of sacks from that position, but because he has special traits, he definitely has that. I think the thing that he may go down as one of the best at, if not the best at, knocking the ball down at the line of scrimmage. His ability to bat passes changes the way quarterbacks have to throw the ball from the pocket. So he can affect the game not only by taking them down, but by changing where they have to release the ball.
Look, I think of great defensive players that can do a couple things. Number one, on third down and in obvious passing situations, can they make plays? Then I think of guys, you're in a short yardage situation where it's key moments of the games. He can do that, and those 2 things help prevent points. What separates J.J. Watt and why he has a chance to go down as an all-time great is he doesn't just prevent points; he produces points.
Yes.
So you're talking about scooping and scoring. You're talking about interceptions for touchdowns. I mean, that's what makes him so rare. I've seen guys, win as pass rushers. I've seen guys knife through tackles for loss. I see a lot of that. I don't have many examples of guys picking off passes, batting them up in the air, catching them, and then being able to be athletic enough to take them back and score points.
Yeah, I mean, the way he puts the ball in the paint from a defensive perspective, it's what you want. He's kind of a coach's dream because he plays hard. He's your best player who plays the hardest and also works. He sets the example for the young guys. He is a guy that deserves to have the C on his chest because he is a captain in the way he plays.
All right, good question, LL. Let's move on. Let's go Robert Quinn here. What do you got, Buck?
Robert Quinn, this is a guy that has really come on like gangbusters. Now, I love my Tar Heels, and he's another guy that kind of fits the mold of those guys coming out. We saw Julius Peppers ascend and become one of the best pass rushers ever. Robert Quinn is on the way of matching that feat, following those footsteps, has come in. And when I think about the 3 traits that he brings to the table, natural, fierce, and destructive.
Nice, I like that.
Natural off the ball. He's a natural pass rusher. There are a lot of things that great pass rushers do that simply cannot be taught. He has a great feel for getting to the quarterback, whether it's using speed and quickness, using power, his snap count anticipation. He just does a great job of bringing guys down. He's fierce. This is a guy that plays with an attitude. I think it's certainly been enhanced by the fact that Greg Williams has come over, has kind of added a little spice to that defense. He plays with that edge. He doesn't mind taking big shots, and he sets the tone with that angry demeanor. Finally, he's destructive. I want a guy off the edge that can produce big plays, force fumbles, get the ball out the quarterback's hands. Creating turnovers is really optimal on defense. Robert Quinn is the guy that brings all those traits to the table.
All right, now this is one. Maybe this is the first one we don't have the same thought on a guy. To me, I have him as fluid, agile, and I'll talk about leverage. So you talk more about the instinctive side of him, the natural side of him. The first thing that jumps out to me, he's just a loose athlete. He's very, very fluid. There's different types of pass rushers. You have the tightly wound guys that have shock and power. And then you have guys that are just kind of, we talked about Bendy a little bit earlier. He's kind of more in that vein, just a very fluid, agile athlete. And then the last word that I had is leverage. And that to me is, Elvis Dumervil is a perfect example of leverage. But he's got natural leverage because he's short. Robert Quinn is a taller guy, but still is able to get low and be able to work up through blockers and is able to play with a low pad level and plays with great leverage.
He does get up under the guys. And I think what is really remarkable is he didn't play his final season in North Carolina. So it took him a while to kind of make his mark in the league because he missed those reps that he would have gotten as a junior heading into the league. But He's developed a series of moves that allow him to get home, and he plays opposite what I think is the perfect complement in Chris Long. Chris Long is a high motor player, a guy that plays hard, is more technically sound maybe than Robert. Robert has taken those traits, added them to a more athletic frame, and because of that, we've seen his numbers go from good to great of late.
All right, guys. So earlier this season, or last season, I should say, on the show, DJ, you asked five, where you asked front office execs if a question, and they essentially said Robert Quinn was probably as good as J.J. Watt, if not better. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think is there anything that Robert Quinn is better at than J.J. Watt?
Well, I mean, I think coming into last year, that was a discussion to be had. I think last year we saw J.J. just completely take it to another level. But I think as a natural pass rusher, Quinn has so many different tricks in his bag. Mm-hmm. He's just a real natural guy. You talked about that. To me, JJ, I think some people maybe early on thought, okay, he's got strength and speed and power, but maybe not a technician, whereas Robert Quinn has all these different tricks in his bag, can beat you in so many different ways. Speed to power, he can counter, you can spin, he can do everything. So I think from that standpoint, I think coming into last year, that was a conversation to be had. I don't know that's a conversation anymore.
No, I don't know if that's a conversation, but I do think if you're a defensive coordinator, depending on your scheme, you may have a preference for a guy like a Robert Quinn, a guy that you can put in. You think about Washburn, think about those wide lines, meaning that you line up the defensive end a little wider than the shoulder of the offensive tackle so you can have a better angle to get to the quarterback. He can do that. Also, in a scheme like they have in St. Louis where Greg Williams likes to dial it up, you're able to create one-on-one matchups. This guy has a plethora of moves. He has a number of moves that he can use to assault offensive tackles and quarterbacks. I like him. I still would take J.J. Watt because I like the consistency and the way that he leads. But certainly you can make a case for Robert Quinn to be included in the discussion.
All right. Hopefully Charlie Casserly's listening because we're talking about Mario Williams right now, which is I can remember going back to that draft when Mario Williams and Reggie Bush. I was in Baltimore. Everybody assumed Reggie Bush was going to be the first pick. And I was in a scouts room. There were about 6 or 7 of us in there. And somebody from the hallway yells, "Holy blank, they're going to take Mario Williams with the first pick." And we all were like, ha, 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 like, they're going to take Reggie Bush. Like, no, it's on the news right now. They're taking Mario Williams. And we were all like, whoa, because Reggie Bush we thought was just kind of this once-a-generation type player. Mario Williams was fantastic. We all had huge grades on him, but we all thought Reggie Bush was going to be the guy. Charlie Casserly made the right move. And when I look at my 3 things on him real quick, Buck, size, versatility, and power. The size to me that jumps out at you, I know it was made in that draft, as athletic as Reggie Bush is. You look at the size of a Mario Williams, who's 6'6", 300 pounds, 290, and I think he verticaled even more than Reggie did. I mean, he's a freak of a man. He's just ginormous. And then the versatility, you can play in either scheme. If you want to play in a 4-man front, you can play him outside. You want to play in a 3-man front, he can be able to hold the point of attack and 2-gap if you wanted him to. And then just that raw power that comes with all that size and explosiveness.
He's a different athlete. Super Mario, as he was called when he was at NC State. This is a guy that has rare traits for the position. When I think about my 3 words, rugged, dominant, and versatile. Rugged, this is a powerful man, a powerful player, a guy that overwhelms offensive tackles with his power, his ability to just crush them and drive them back to the quarterback. Even on the clips, we saw him use a stab move to walk the tackle back into the quarterback's lap. That is a sign of his power. Dominant. He plays the game in a high fashion. When you're the number 1 overall pick, there are expectations that come with that. He has lived up to those expectations. The last 4 years, 3 times he's gone over double-digit sacks. He has been a guy in multiple schemes that has been able to produce that kind of production. I like that when I'm thinking about a dominant pass rusher and versatile. 3-4, 4-3, whatever scheme you want, he has been able to fit in. And there were questions about would he be able to fit in the 3-4 at first when he went to Houston and Wade Phillips was our defensive coordinator. He has continued to do it. Mike Pettine's system went back to base defensive end under Jim Schwartz. Last year, comes back with Rex Ryan, goes back to outside linebacker. That versatility gives you a lot of options, and now being able to dial it up with Rex Ryan and Dennis Thurman at the controls, I think you'll see him have even better numbers than he's shown thus far in his career.
Good news, by the way, unrelated to our discussion here. I just got a text message from Appalachian State. I am going to be in a suite for their opener against.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah, they treat me right. Treat me right coming back on the hill.
Before you know, you have your name in the Ring of Honor there.
No, that's not happening. But I'll take the nice seats. All right, let's move on here. Cameron Wake, who's one of my favorite players to watch. I'll let you lead off on this one.
This is something like. Every scout has misses. We all have misses. But the fact that we all missed throughout the league on Cameron Wake when he first came out, he was going by Derek Wake. when he came out of Penn State. But goes to Canada, becomes a dominant player in Canada, makes his way back down to the National Football League, and he does something that most Canadian players aren't able to do. He makes an impact immediately in the National Football League. 3 traits that stand out when I look at him: ferocious, powerful, intimidator. He is ferocious and relentless in his effort. He dominates off the edge. He is a non-stop motor who has freakish athleticism, really does it in a convincing fashion. Powerful, the way that he gets into tackles and blows them back. He can use speed to get around you, but sometimes he'll line them up, take them right down the middle, and blow them back into the quarterback's lap. And intimidating. If I'm a team getting ready to play the Miami Dolphins, and I look up, I know they have Ndamukong Suh, but my right tackle has the challenge of dealing with a Cameron Wake. And normally, your right tackle is a little deficient when it comes to pass pro. Cameron Wake wears those guys out down after down. I love what he brings to the table. One of my favorite pass rushers.
I'm trying to find it on here, Buck, as you're talking, because I have my report on him. I know I've done it previously on an episode on hits and misses, which, if you're just checking us out for the first time, I'll read a report that I got right, one that I got wrong, see if you can figure out who it is. I'm going to challenge you, Buck. You got to come in here and bring some.
I'm going to dig into the garage, see if I can find some.
You got to find some more reports and bring them in, and we'll do that. But I know I had done Wake at one point in time, and I'd given him a 6th or 7th round grade. Goes to Canada. The rest is history. My words for him, terms for him: twitched up. That's another way to say a guy is really explosive. He's just got those fast twitch muscles. Twitched up effort. And then finally, a scouting term that I don't know if too many people were familiar with, but I talk about a guy being able to roll his hips. And that's what makes him special. You can get steady power when you're a stiff guy, and you get kind of that steady push. But to get a jolt, to be able to really explode into somebody, the way I describe it, you just got to be able to roll those hips forward. So you get all that flexibility in your hips on contact. You roll your hips, and you'll really see a guy get jolted and jarred back, and Cameron Wake does that as well as anybody.
You know, he does do that. He can go through them, and just looking at the last couple clips, his get-off, snap count anticipation, his ability to anticipate when the center is going to bring the ball back to the quarterback allows him to get that half a second jump on offensive tackles, and he's a violent player. He runs through quarterbacks, separates them from the ball. The Dolphins' defense is going to be scary because when you put him alongside Ndamukong Suh, they can come at you a bunch of different ways without having to blitz. That's scary.
All right, let's go now to something we're going to call top 3 skills. And this is basically if we're building a pass rusher. And you
Build-A-Bear.
Yeah, this is basically a Build-A-Bear. Do they even have those anymore?
Yeah, you still can Build-A-Bear. You can stuff it with what you want, change it.
Put the little, if you go to the mall, you put the little heart in there, get the name. We have kids. We know how this works. So if we're just kind of building a pass rusher, and we want to start with, we get 3 choices here. So you can have 3 traits of a player, and we'll go 3 to 1, and I'll let you bat lead off here. What do you got?
You know, this was tough. I really debated long and hard on this. Number 3 for me, I want Von Miller's get off. If I'm building an ideal pass rusher, I want someone who can get off the ball and get to the quarterback in a hurry. I've already mentioned the comparisons to my teammate Derek Thomas. He has that. He has the ability to come off the ball like a bear. Cat-like quickness, explosive, gets home, also gives you a little celebration at the end. I like what Von Miller brings to the table. My second trait, Mario Williams, power. I want a guy that is dominant, can absolutely obliterate offensive tackles with his sheer force and brute strength. That's what Mario Williams
explain the stab move.
Just the way that he just takes his arm. He'll extend that arm, he'll lock his elbow, and he'll just drive the guy back. He has that ability. It's hard for young guys to develop that. He has that. We saw him knock the ball down, kind of using the stab move. Finally, J.J. Watt's motor. We can always talk about having the best guy on your team. You want the most talented guy. But also, I want that guy to play harder than anyone else. J.J. Watt has those skills. And so when you have a dominant rusher, they know they're going to face double teams. They're going to get chipped by a back coming off the edge. They have to be able to work through that. J.J. Watt does that, and because of that, I want a relentless guy like him on my team.
All right, so that's how you're building your Frankenstein. I'll take my stab at it here. I'm going to start number 3, and I'm going to go back to Cameron Wake, who we just talked about. Cameron Wake's power. His ability to test your anchor. If you're an athletic tackle, which the college game is producing all these pass protectors, right? They see these undersized 220-pound speed rushers. They got no anchor. You have no anchor, Cameron Wake will blow you up.
Just like that.
No question. He will run right through your chest. So I got his power as my number 3. Number 2, I got J.J. Watt, and I think you used motor. I'm going to say tenacity.
Yeah.
Just his never going to stop, never going to quit. Snap to whistle. You might block him 60 plays. that 61st play, you take a play off, he's not only going to get a sack, he's going to strip the ball, and he's going to produce points. And then finally, my number one trait is your guy. You compare him to Derek Thomas and Von Miller to me, just his ability to bend. We use the same word. You said bendy, I said bendy. That's what makes him so special to me. I think that's the most special trait of any pass rusher in the NFL is Von Miller's ability to bend and wrap.
I mean, the way he gets so low skating around the corner, it makes him tough to – I mean, look, right there. Like, his ability to turn the corner, you just can't do that. And so those right tackles trying to block him, they have no chance.
Yeah, I would say right now, in my opinion, the pass rushing talent in the NFL right now far greater than the offensive tackle talent. And I think this kind of ebbs and flows. We had that golden era, right, where we had Baselli, Ogden, Orlando Pace, Walter Jones, all those guys. I think that
right
that
now the scales of balance are tipped to the pass rusher. And because we value it as maybe the second or third most important position outside of quarterback, you go right to pass rusher when you're building your team. You have to have those guys. And we're seeing those basketball-like players that you alluded to play that position. That's why they're dominant guys. All
right, so now let's get one last topic in here, and that's just kind of an edge rusher to watch for the future. We've outlined who the top guys are right now, but give me one name of a guy that's going to be on the come this year.
This guy's already on the come. He kind of made his name last year. Everson Griffin from the Minnesota Vikings. Part of the reason I'm really high on them, I'm kind of bullish on the Minnesota Vikings, is because on defense they can play the right way. This is a guy that can do it. Look, coming out of SC, I didn't know how good he was going to be. I don't think many people knew. I want to say he was a fourth-round pick. Comes in, there were questions about his immaturity. You really didn't know if he could put it together. He's put it together now. Yep. Last year, I want to say he had 12.5 sacks. There you see the spin move against Donovan Smith. He overwhelms people with his quickness, his athleticism, and he's still developing that patented go-to move. This is a guy that's on the come. Look for him to join those elite pass rushers very, very soon.
And when you're evaluating players in college, to me, this can get you in trouble sometimes when you just focus on the tools, right? There's guys that don't have a lot of production, and then you say, but I don't know, he has all the tools to be able to convert that to the next level. So you're trying to forecast what he's going to be, not what he is. And this is a classic example of a guy that had all those tools in college, hadn't put it together yet. And then on the other side of it, we've seen some guys that have all these stats in college, but the tools don't really translate. Absolutely. And that's the challenge in scouting.
Yeah, it is a challenge. You know, it's one of those things. It's funny because I think I got this from your old crew in Baltimore. One stat that translates to production sometimes is sacks. Everest Dumerville, you alluded to. Look, he had 20 sacks his last year at Louisville, but because he was short, sometimes we bypassed him. Sometimes guys just have a knack of getting it done. And you can have all the tools, but there's an art to the craft, and some guys have mastered it.
All right, my breakout one to kind of bring this full circle here. We talked a little bit about the Chargers early on, and you mentioned Melvin Ingram and the 2 sacks he had the other day. He's my breakout guy. And
man, it's the Chargers loaded.
Yeah,
Chargers
strong. My parents are season ticket holders. Full disclosure for everybody at home. But no, Melvin Ingram, I went down there training camp. He's leaner. He's lighter. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. That's been the big knock on him. But to me, he looks good. He's got some of that explosiveness back that you want to see. If he can string together 16 games, I think he's got a chance to be a 12, 13 sack guy in the league. And that'd be fantastic news for the San Diego Chargers, who we touched on. We like the corners they have. They have Eric Weddle back there. They've done a nice job at inside linebacker. They've got some depth there. Corey Leggett, who's a stud inside. If they can get the edge rush from a guy like Melvin Ingram, man, this could be a really good football team.
They can be a very good football team. He can be a very good player. I remember watching him in South Carolina. I love the way he played. I loved his motor. I loved his ability to disrupt plays at the point of attack. I think he's gotten back to who he was. I think he tried to add weight to try and play the game in a prototypical fashion. I think the Chargers finally realized, look, this is a guy that is a special athlete. His quickness, his burst, his athleticism is going to be why he's able to get home. They're allowing him to kind of spin the wheel and do his thing off the edge. Because of that, we're seeing more production. I'm excited after watching him against Arizona. I think he can be a guy that's very, very disruptive.
Me too. Look, this is a jam-packed episode, Bucky. Thank you for coming in here. And again, you can catch this on YouTube. You can catch it on NFL Now, I believe. You can catch it on NFL.com, and you can download it at iTunes. If you haven't subscribed to the show already, be sure to do that on iTunes. So that's going to do it here for Move the Sticks. We will be back next week with a fresh episode. Enjoy Week 3 of the preseason.
Thanks for downloading Move the Sticks with Daniel Jeremiah. For more, go to NFL.com/podcast.